Good afternoon, City of Bloomington. My name is Tim Gleason. I'm your city manager, and you typically hear from the mayor with his videos to the community, but felt that this might be a perfect time for you to hear also from your city manager. So I got the mayor's permission and some of the other elected officials to be able to speak to you guys. And while there's many things that we could talk about amidst COVID-19 when this began mid-March, I really am going to be very specific and talk about the dining guidelines that we shared publicly yesterday and will go into effect tomorrow on Friday as we enter this new phase in the state of Illinois of this pandemic. It's an exciting day that's coming, and felt there might be value for me to walk through the guidelines that we've posted, where they can be found, what the expectation is, maybe the logic behind it, and maybe some of the opportunities that we could see out of this. I'm going to turn real quick and look at my internet is pulled up on my computer screen, and that is citybloom.org, CITYBLM.org. And this is the home page, and you'll see right here at the top you've got outdoor dining, bar service documents available. You click this on, takes a couple of minutes to load, and the first page are the 16 bullet points or guidelines, and then also rules right here. And then also we have the application agreement, and if it's not the response that is needed, it will kick you back rather than allowing you to submit. And then once everything is submitted, we've got staff that are watching these and know that we're going to make a turnaround in very short order on the request from you or the business owners on approving whatever you have submitted. One thing to note is that we have 16 guidelines, and these really are public areas. You know, we're talking about the sidewalks, we're talking about the streets, the parking spaces. We're not talking about indoor, your private space, that there's some things within the state guidelines that govern what's allowed, as an example. And please don't quote me, find the state guidelines, but one thing that's allowed is if you have 50% of a wall that can be opened up, that adjacent indoor dining space within 8 foot, I believe, is what the criteria is. You can have some indoor dining, but that's a requirement. And we're not speaking to that. We're talking about the possibilities on the sidewalks and in the public right-of-way, the parking spaces. So what occurs tomorrow? What occurs tomorrow is that you will submit. We will likely approve, amend, maybe tweak, but in most cases what we've seen up to this point is you've covered the 16 guidelines and we're able to approve, get it back out to you, and you're able to start setting up and preparing for tomorrow. You have sidewalks immediately in front of the establishment. That's an area for you to provide outdoor dining, but also the parking spaces in front of your business as well. If you're a corner business, then you've got two frontages. You have two sides, that you can use the sidewalks, and you can use those parking spaces that are directly in front of your establishment if it's a corner establishment. We've actually taken it one step further, and if you get written permission from your adjacent business neighbor, you can use their sidewalk space as well if they allow that, and the parking spaces in front of those businesses, all in an opportunity to try to expand and maximize this outdoor dining experience and to allow the businesses to start providing to the community, but also to start generating revenue. In some cases more revenue, in some cases going from no revenue to some revenue. While there's some businesses in the community that are doing very well, there's some that aren't doing very well. And of the restaurants and the bars that might have had curbside delivery or pickup or delivery, very much thank this community for supporting our local business. I've heard many a story where the outpouring of support has been tremendous, and that's thanks to you, and that's thanks to this community. One thing I think that most people realize about me, and maybe you don't, but I was a city manager in Washington during the tornado 7 years ago now, in the recovery afterwards. This is very similar in that we didn't ask for any of this at all, but we've had to respond. And we would be remiss if we don't look for the opportunities in something like this, whether it's how I conduct business within the city with my employees, or whether it's how we do things out in the community. Downtown has been that kind of discussion. You know, I stepped into this position a couple of years ago and had heard about all the possibilities, all the ideas involving the downtown. One of those discussions was removing permanently a lane of traffic in the downtown blocks. And while that has been an ongoing discussion, I think that we have an opportunity amidst COVID-19 to explore that further. The reason a lane closure in any of our city downtown blocks is not going to occur starting tomorrow is because there are a number of considerations that have to be met before we can do something like that. We have business owners that might be impacted, in their opinion, negatively because of the lane closure. And while we're not going to satisfy everyone, I definitely need to have that outreach and that communication to the businesses that were considering this, or the likelihood that this is coming, or the fact that for sure this is coming. I need that communication piece. I also have a public safety and a public transportation component that I've got to make sure that we can access these points. None of these are insurmountable, but they're areas that I've got to figure out first. Another area that I actually think is the biggest is the private delivery. So now I've got a lane that's closed. You guys have private delivery, you know, for your goods that you need to have delivered to your stores. And I've got to allow you a chance to communicate that these are the allowed times to make your deliveries downtown, as an idea. I also would need to communicate to the community that between, as an example, 9 and 10 o'clock on Monday through Friday morning, you know, expect long delays, you know, if you're going to be traveling downtown, because there could be deliveries. You know, all these things are nothing that is going to be too difficult or challenging to figure out, but it's this type of stuff that I have to consider before I even close down a lane or two or more in the downtown. So definitely see an opportunity. Wanted to take the time to, one, thank the community and also recognize the businesses. Also wanted to share that my council, in granting this emergency authority to me as the city manager on Tuesday night at our council meeting, speaks to their commitment to this community and to the business community. You know, basically they're telling me just figure it out. Make sure it's safe, make sure it's legal, find a creative way to figure this out. And that creativity truly is the business side of this. You know, I'm just sitting here at a desk. We have steps to cover, but when it gets to my desk, I want to find a way to say yes and get you guys back open and start towards normalcy for the community. You know, whatever the new normal is going to be under COVID-19. So with that said, again, this is probably one of the only times that you're going to hear from me as your city manager. Typically something the elected, definitely the mayor, will do, which is the appropriate way to do this. But with this business reopening and the guidelines for dining, definitely felt that this is something that fell to me to communicate with you, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to be your city manager, and thank you for everything. Take care.